Hello and welcome to the Care It Out Sleep Show, a podcast for tired parents who are searching for a bit more sleep the caring way. I'm your host, Kerry Secker, infant sleep consultant, founder of my unique sleep approach, Care It Out, and your caring sleep supporter. I really hope you'll join me on my mission to get snores a settled night's sleep without the tears, training or techniques. I love talking about sleep and I can't wait to share my sleep subjects with you. My approach to getting you more sleep is simple, straightforward, but above all, it's got to make sense and feel best for you. Ready to get more sleep? Then let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Care It Out Sleep Show. I think this episode, I need to double check, but this is actually quite a big landmark for the sleep show because this is the 30th episode. I can't believe it. One, that it's actually got to 30, and also that I've got so much to talk about. So yeah, really excited about that. And thank you so much for picking up this podcast as always, whether it's your first time that you've discovered the podcast or you're a seasoned sleep show stalker and you've listened to every single one. Big welcome, and I really hope as ever you find it useful. I am going to try and keep this one short and sweet. I tried to alternate between having a longer episode and then a shorter one with some quick tips, and this episode is the toddler bed transition episode, and I am doing this one once again by popular demand. I've had lots of requests on this on Instagram. I'm actually by email. Like how do we get them transitioned into a toddler bed? So I thought it'd be really nice to do an episode about this. So in this episode, I am going to go through 4 sleep suggestions for a smoother toddler bed transition for both you and your small. But before I go through my sleep suggestions, I just wanted to reassure you that transitioning your toddler from their cot to their toddler bed is a big transition. It's a big transition not only for your toddler, but also for you. I think that's really important to acknowledge that. And it's also totally natural and normal that you are going to worry about how they, and also probably about how you are going to cope with these changes. You may worry about things like, are they going to stay in bed when you put them to sleep? Are they going to be safe in there? Are they going to keep coming out of bed at bedtime? Are they actually going to sleep? Are they just going to keep making a bid for freedom? But again, I'm always very honest. I'm a very honest person, both professionally and personally. I'm always very honest. I don't know how your toddler is going to adapt to the changes because they're all really different and only you know. I'm a massive, massive advocate of you are your toddler's expert. But most toddlers will adapt very well with this transition, and they transition from their cot bed to their toddler bed with very, very little kickback if we give them a little bit of time. Time is one of those things. It's so boring. I must mention time all the time, on Instagram, in podcasts, when I'm talking to families in practice, when I'm working with families, when I'm chatting to families, talk. It's all about time. But it can be so important because when we're making a change, any change is strange. It feels a little bit weird. It feels a little bit unfamiliar, and it takes time for it to feel familiar and to all, pardon the pun here, bed in. But I found that most toddlers adapt very well with the transition if we give them a bit of time, a bit of practice and patience to get used to their new bed, get used to the new way of sleeping, and also getting used to their new freedom that they've got. They do settle, and actually from experiencing with working with lots of families, I've actually found it's more likely that you'll worry about the transition than them. It's one of those things that quite often we build something up in our head so much that we just build it up, but actually when we come to do it, we just go, wow, what was all that about? It was absolutely fine. And the other thing I just want to mention as well is parenting is so personal, and there's quite often this push me, pull me with parenting. Like, you want them to get in their bigger bed, you might want them to get more sleep, you might want more independent naps, all of these things, but then when they do it, you're like, oh, but you're not my baby anymore, you're in a cot, you're not in a cot anymore, you're in a bed. And there's often that the big feelings can come up for you when you're making these transitions, and I think it's really important to acknowledge them, and also to take the time. It's completely normal to have that conflict of emotion, that you would like them in their toddler bed, but also it means that something's passing, it's another step onwards, and just take time to acknowledge that. So just wanted to go through that as well. However, saying all of that, reassurance is always my default, so hopefully you found that reassuring. But like most things on my approach, there's always some suggestions that could help your toddler bed transition go a little bit smoother for you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through my 4 sleep suggestions that could help you and your toddler to have a more smoother transition. So number 1 is transitions take time. I've talked about this before, actually. I mentioned it all the time, but transitions take time, and any change to what usually happens for your toddler is strange. I'm always saying that change is strange, and it's completely natural that when we do something new, your toddler will notice, and it can unsettle them temporarily. Toddlers are very bright, they're very knowing, they're very keen, and it is very, very, very unlikely that you do the transition going from their cot to their bed and they don't notice. They are very, very likely to notice. In fact, most of them will notice it very, very quickly. They're very, very clever, these toddlers. So any transition is a big change for them. They are going to notice, and it can unsettle them temporarily, but this is completely normal. There's going to be a period of adjustment as they adapt to their new bed, and I always encourage that they may take much longer to settle to sleep at bedtime, or their sleep might get a little bit disrupted, but it is all part of the process. And by giving your toddler a little bit of time to transition, around about a week to 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, it's likely to settle. And I just also wanted to go through this. Another thing that I just wanted to mention as well is that how we deal with change, it really does depend on your toddler, because as adults, some of us as adults we welcome change, we thrive on change, we really enjoy it. It's like water off a duck's back. We just crack on with the change, and it's fine. Where for some of us, we find change really, really hard. It unsettles us, we don't like it, we can resist it, we can get stuck in our ways. And it's the same for toddlers. I think this comes down to our personality and temperament, which we can't change. Some toddlers are very open and adaptable to change, and they'll just roll with it, and they're absolutely fine. Where some toddlers really dislike change, they really resist it, and they can find that change quite tough. There is no right or wrong way to how your toddler should behave when we're making a change. I think that's really important. Number 2 is the duvet cover decision. I love this one. Giving them a little bit of control over big changes can really, really help your toddler adapt well to their new bed. And not only does it help with the changes, it gives them some control over the change, that we're getting them involved, they get excited about it. It also gets them looking forward to their new bed. So letting them decide on, or even just involved in which duvet cover or bedding they're going to have, can go a really long way to help them cooperate. Before I worked with sleep, I'd also worked with a lot with behaviour, and one of my favourite things is to get them to cooperate. We want to give them some control. It really, really, really helps. And if you are like the thought of giving some of the kids I looked after some choice to pick out some duvet or some bedding, they would pick out some horrific things. So we want that choice. When we're giving toddlers a choice, we want the choice to be acceptable to you as well. So what could be quite handy is you make the decision, like you choose 2 or 3 pieces of bedding, or you choose a couple of duvets or patterns that suit you, that work for you, and then you kind of do all the vetting of it, and then your toddler has the final decision. They think they're getting complete control over it, but actually it's going to work for all of you. That can help massively. And also going to if you're going to take them to a shop, that can often be quite overwhelming. You could get pictures out, cut them out, you could do a craft together. Most toddlers really, really love that if you're into craft and stuff, and actually that can actually help by showing them on pictures or on the website, it actually helps it over when they get to the shop and there's too many to choose from. I'm also a massive fan of introducing, or again letting them pick a new bed TED, aka toddler TED, when they're transitioning to their new toddler bed. Now, I'm definitely not going to make outlandish claims that a new teddy bear is going to magically help this transition go really super smoothly, because there isn't. It comes down, there's so many different layers: temperament, personality, how your toddler deals with change, loads of different things, lots and lots of different things. But having said that, it can help getting them a new TED. So it can be the same thing for the duvet. Pick a couple of teddies or soft toys that you are happy for them to sleep with. You're happy to have that as their new bed TED, and then give them the final, show them and get them to do the final decision of bed TED. It can really help to encourage them into bed, because what you can do is toddlers love playing and role playing and mimicking. So you could get them to put their bed TED to bed first. You can tuck TED into bed in their bed, show them how it's done, and that can really encourage them to actually get into bed in the first place. But also what it can do is it can also help keep them company in their bed overnight time. I really love the TED. It's a really lovely tool to have if you're happy for them to sleep with something. Number 3 is stick with their usual sleep settle. So transitioning to a toddler bed is a really big change for your toddler. I think I've mentioned that a couple of times now. And I'm really hoping that it will be a slightly smoother one with some of these suggestions for you. However, making too many changes all at once can really unsettle them and make the transition even harder than it really needs to be for you both. And whenever I'm working with a family, talking to a family, making content or giving suggestions, in the back of my mind, I'm always asking myself, what's essential here? What is the path of least resistance, and what's going to get you to where you want to be in the quickest and easiest way possible for everybody? I think that's really important. And my whole approach is also, it's about making one change at a time and then giving it time. I'm a massive fan of that. I do it with myself when I'm making changes. You could apply that theory to anything, but if we're making a big change such as putting them into their toddler bed, my suggestion would be to just work on that one change first, and then give it some time, and then if you want to make any other changes afterwards, then you can do it. So my suggestion would be, whilst you're settling them into their new sleep space, aka their new toddler bed, my biggest sleep suggestion, which I tell everybody, is to stick to their usual bedtime routine and how you'd normally settle them to sleep as much as you possibly can. This helps things keep consistent. They know exactly what to expect. It feels familiar. They can anticipate it. But most importantly of all, we're not making too many changes at once. And then after that, if you did want to, everything on my approach has got there is method behind the chaos. It's definitely a process, and there's always a priority with most things. So if we transition them into their toddler bed, that is the priority first. Now, once you've transitioned them into their toddler bed, you may want to make changes to their routine. Something might not be working in their routine for you or for them or their sleep. You might actually even want to change how they're going to sleep, their bedtime boundaries. And that's absolutely okay. My whole approach, if something is working for you, all is well, we don't need to change it. And if it isn't working for you, you want to make changes, I think it's always okay to make changes in a way that feels comfortable for you. So if you do want to make these changes to their routine or how they fall asleep, my suggestion would be to wait until they're falling asleep in their new toddler bed consistently and comfortably, and then you can crack on with the changes. It shouldn't take that long. I hate that word, should or shouldn't, naughty me, but making the transition to toddler bed, it's often quicker than you think it is. Like, I reckon maximum 7 to 10 days, sometimes even quicker, but general rule of thumb with me, I would suggest doing something for 3 to 5 days first and then crack on. And then once you're doing that, then you can crack on with the changes. And by doing this, they are making those changes, whether it's changes to their bedtime routine or changes to their bedtime boundary, they are much likely to be a smoother step for both you and your toddler. And again, that comes back to always looking out for you. I've always got your bed back. I'm always looking out for you. And it's always about how can we make this change as smooth, as easy as possible, and also doing it in the quickest way, like taking that path of least resistance. I don't think that's lazy at all. And then lastly, sleep suggestion number 4 is jack in a bed. When you make that transition to a toddler bed, your toddler will suddenly find themselves newfound freedom that they've not had before, because they couldn't get out of the cot, or most wouldn't have been able to get out of the cot. But now, I'm sure you don't need me to point this out to you, they are able to get out of bed themselves. And this can naturally cause some anxiety and some worry for you. And sometimes for your toddler as well. Like, they might want to go to sleep. They might be really tired. They might even be a little bit overtired. But they just can't help themselves with that freedom. It's all so new. It's all so novel. It's exciting. You think of us when we make big changes and how we just want to do it over and over and over again. So whilst it can cause some anxiety and worry for you, it can also cause some anxiety and worry for your toddler as well. And I think that's important to reassure you about that as well. But having said that, it is absolutely all part of the transition process. And what I was saying before, when something is new, it's a novelty, and it's normal for your toddler to explore their new bed and really push the bedtime boundaries. It's a little bit like if you're a driver, when we first started driving, chances are when we first passed our test, or before we'd even passed our test, all we wanted to do is drive. It was so new, it was so exciting, we felt amazing, we felt so grown up, all of those feelings. And in the beginning, we just wanted to do all of the driving, run errands, pick our friends up, run errands for our parents. We just want to drive all the time. And then as that novelty started to wear off, and the driving wasn't such a new experience anymore, it became familiar, it just becomes something we do, that novelty factor does wear off eventually. And if you're anything like me, I'm just like, oh no, I don't want to drive now, why do I need to drive now? And it's the same with getting out of bed. I love an analogy, and that's a great one. In the beginning, all your toddler wants to do is get out of bed. Now, what I would say about this is that all toddlers are completely different, as you probably know, and my whole approach, there's not a one size fits all small or toddler. Just like how some toddlers accept change and deal with change, some simply won't make a bid for freedom at all and will stay in their bed, perhaps with their bed turned. Like, you will put them in, I've definitely looked after children like this, where you put them in their bed and they don't move, they don't get out, they're not interested in getting out. Where others, some toddlers, you will start, you'll put them in their bed and will start to get out of bed, or even leave the bedroom to come and find you. And you may even find that you and your toddler are playing a game of Jack in the Bed. This is completely normal. I can remember once that I love this story. I nearly absolutely had a heart attack at work once. It gave me such a fright. Put the toddler into bed. I came out, I was just cooking dinner, tidying up the toys, as you do, and all of a sudden they just came. I don't know how they did it so quietly, just snuck up behind me. It gave me such a fright. I do think this is all part of transitioning into a toddler bed. Though it is all part of transitioning into a toddler bed, it can be a really, really super frustrating, tiring time, not only for you and your toddler. Again, it comes back to, they might want to go to sleep, they might be tired, but they just can't help themselves with that novelty and that newfound freedom of getting out of bed. But the good news is it's usually only temporary, and it does usually settle with time. However, if it does happen and you find yourself in this game of a jack in a bed, where you put your little one into the bed, they just get out, my more suggestions really around this are, one is, again, give it time to settle. I've said it again. I've said it before in this episode. I'm going to say it again. Transitions take time. It is all part of the process. When we're learning something new, we don't just get it the first time we do it. We do it again and again and again and practice it. If they do get out of bed or come out of the bedroom, my suggestion would be to try to quit the questions. It is so tempting, and I've definitely done this, to say things such as, why aren't you asleep? Why are you out of bed again? Why are you doing this? Why? And questions can often be the killer of all things parenting. They've absolutely no idea why they're doing it, and neither do we. And actually, it can both keep you giving those playing that Jack in a Box or Jack in a Bed game for a little bit longer. So my suggestion is, when they do come out of bed or out of the bedroom, or they're about to come out of bed, I'd really try and resist those questions. I prefer to try and reassure them, but reinforce that bedtime boundary. So say something like, I know it's hard to stay in bed, you wanted to come and see where I was, you wanted to check I was here. That's okay, but now it's sleepy time. And then my suggestion would be to gently guide them back straight to bed straight away. We can make eye contact, we can reassure them, we can touch them, we can get them tucked back in bed with their head if they've got it, and then continue to settle them to sleep as normal. It's completely normal. That is all part of the process. So let me just run through that again. If they got out of bed or they came out of the bedroom, smile, make eye contact if you can, try to resist those questions, quit the questions if you can. If you really feel that you need to say something, try to commentate on the situation. Oh, you're out of bed. Oh, you gave me a fright. Oh, you've come to find me, rather than the questions. It just keeps everything going for longer. Reassure them, but reinforce that bedtime boundary. It's always about reassuring and reinforcing them. Say something simple like, I know it's hard to stay in bed, you wanted to come and find me, but it's the end of the day and it's sleepy time. So we're offering that reassurance. It's hard to stay in bed. And empathy, I think, goes such a long way, especially when we're trying something new. But then reinforce that boundary of what you would like them to do. But it's sleepy time now. We'll get you tucked back in bed. We're going back in your room. Then if they've come out of the room, gently guide them back into the bedroom, or gently guide them back into the bed straight away. I do think that's quite I really do think that's quite important, to try and do it as soon as possible. If you need to get a drink or find something, then absolutely do that. But as soon as you can get them back into the bedroom and into the bed, I think that could be really helpful. Stay with them, reassure them, get them tucked back into their bed, give them a kiss, and then continue to settle them in their normal way. And it is time. The less we play the game, the more we reassure them, the more familiar it becomes, the less likely they're going to want to jump out of bed. And then my last sleep suggestion for you really is just another bit of reassurance that it is completely normal for them to need some extra support to fall asleep, and you may find they need you back in the room to settle to sleep again. Even if you've managed to get out of the room before, they were putting themselves to sleep with you out of the room, or they were putting themselves to sleep with you in the room without any support. It's normal to feel, oh my goodness, it's going backwards, sleep is regressing, they're never going to learn how to fall asleep in their toddler bed. These are all completely normal feelings for you to feel. All feels are reals. But my suggestion would be to, again, I'm going to say it, give it time. It's just all part of the process. And if it happens, it's always okay to do that. It's always okay to give them more time, to give them extra support, to stay with them whilst they get a little bit sleepier, because it's all new and it usually settles again on its own without us having to do anything. So if this happens, it's okay to give them that extra support, but I would try to leave the bedroom just before they fall all the way to sleep. If you can, or if you're in the bedroom and you're doing something to get them to sleep, say patting or cuddling, I'd always try to, this isn't about changing bedtime boundaries, this is if they just need a little bit more support, I would always try to cuddle them, pat them, give them what they need, but try to stop just before they fall asleep. So we're always encouraging them to do that last little bit themselves, because that can help get you all back on track. Well, I did manage to keep that under half an hour. It was definitely more than I wanted to do. But you know me, there's always time to talk. But I really, really hope you found that this episode reassuring, and it really helps with you and your toddler transitioning to their toddler bed. And yeah, let me know how you get on. Big love and sleep solidarity. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to me, your host, Kerry Secker, on the Carrot Out Sleep Show. I really hope you found the podcast reassuring, informative, and a little bit fun. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe to the show below, and I'd be so grateful if you could leave me some fabulous feedback. I always love hearing from you, and one lucky listener will win lifetime access to my Bedtime Basics e-course every single month. My next podcast episode will be out in 2 weeks' time, but if you can't wait for more of my sleep shizzle, you can find me over on Instagram at Carrot Out Sleep Consultant. I update my sleep squares and speak sleep there on the daily. Big love and sleep solidarity to you all.